I never imagined I'd be telling this story, especially not like this, alone, in a house that used to echo with laughter, now silenced by absence. 30 years. That's how long we were married. 3 decades of memories, routines, and quiet glances across dinner tables. And yet, all it took was one moment, one conversation, for everything to fall apart. She didn't leave with anger. That's what haunts me the most. There were no slammed doors, no harsh words, just a quiet suitcase by the door and a note that would unravel everything I thought I knew about our life together. I've spent sleepless nights asking myself, asterisk, was it something I missed? Was I not enough? Or was she simply done pretending? What I'm about to share isn't just about a man losing his wife. It's about the hidden cracks beneath a seemingly perfect life, and the revelation that shattered the last illusion I had about love, loyalty, and the person I thought I knew better than anyone. There's something I discovered after she left, something I was never supposed to know. And once I did, I couldn't see her the same way ever again. Before I take you there, I want you to know this. If you've ever questioned your worth after someone walked away, this story is for you. If this touched your heart, please leave a comment, and subscribe. I promise you, what's coming next will change the way you look at love forever. I woke up disoriented, not from sleep, but from absence. The kind of absence that hums low and violent beneath the surface, like an earthquake just before the ground splits open. The sheets beside me were cool, untouched. It took me longer than I care to admit to notice the space. Her space was hollow. The house was too quiet. Not the peaceful, content kind of quiet, but a silence that screamed. No hum of the shower, no clinking of her mug in the kitchen, not even the sound of her soft footsteps pacing when she thought I was asleep. That kind of silence. It wraps around your throat, tightens and whispers, "She's gone." I walked the hallway, each step landing like a drum beat. Her toothbrush wasn't there. Her robe, the green one with the frayed sleeve, was gone. Even her perfume, always the last thing to linger like a ghost after she'd left for work, had vanished. The scent had been erased from the air like she'd scrubbed it from the walls. And then I saw it. A note, folded, clean edges, resting beside her wedding ring on the entryway table. It looked so harmless, like a shopping list. But I knew better. You always know when you're about to open something that will unmake you. My hands trembled before I even touched it. I didn't want to read it. My body already knew what it said. My heart had known for weeks, months maybe, but my head was the stubborn one, always pretending, always hoping. The ink was smudged in one corner, but the rest of it was neat, too neat, like she'd written it slowly, deliberately, with no emotion left to spill. I'm tired of pretending. I need to be who I really am now. No, I love you. No explanation. Just gone, gone. I stood there a long time, holding the note, reading it over and over like I'd missed something, some hidden code between the lines that would unlock a different truth. But there wasn't one. She left, just like that. I called her phone 3 times. 4, straight to voicemail. Her voice, still chipper on the recording, mocked me. "Hey, it's me. Leave a message." As if she'd ever check them again. Our daughter came downstairs, rubbing sleep from her eyes, dragging her bunny by one ear. "Where's Mommy?" I didn't know what to say. "She needed a break," I whispered. She nodded like she understood. But how could she? I watched her walk to the kitchen, still half asleep, unaware her world had just shifted under her feet. She asked for cereal. I poured it, mechanical, robotic. Meanwhile, inside me, something small and vital was cracking, fracturing like thin glass under pressure. And I hadn't even begun to fall apart yet. I sat at the breakfast table, the same table we'd shared for years, where she used to hum softly as she flipped pancakes or cut fruit for our daughter. It was almost like I could hear it still, the faint melody of her voice dancing around the edges of the silence. Her favorite mug was still in the sink, half filled with coffee. I picked it up carefully, almost afraid to touch anything that had been hers. As I washed it, the memories came flooding back, those stupid, insignificant moments that somehow meant everything now. I should have appreciated them more when they happened. I cried as I scrubbed, letting the water blur everything. There was no hiding it anymore. She was gone, and all I had left were the fragments. Memories had become landmines scattered throughout the house, random, dangerous, ready to explode with the simplest thought. The anniversary photo we had framed, her radiant smile, the one where I used to think we were invincible, the burnt pancakes, the one she made that one morning when we laughed about how we'd never get them right. The inside jokes we shared, now they stung, sharp like paper cuts. I replayed old conversations in my head, searching for something, anything that might have tipped me off. Maybe I had missed a sign, some subtle clue she'd left behind. The way she'd sighed a little too deeply when she came home late. The way her eyes would dart around when we talked about the future. But all I could hear now were the echoes of her laughter, haunting me in ways her absence never could. I didn't know if it was better or worse that she had been happy. That laugh, it was still in the air, like she was just around the corner, ready to walk back into the kitchen and fix everything. I walked into the bedroom. There, sitting on the nightstand, was her calendar, open to the date she left. I traced my finger across the page, feeling the finality of it. Her handwriting was slanted, hurried. Just one word, scrawled beneath the date. *freedom. Asterisk. The weight of it hit me like a punch in the gut. It wasn't just that she was gone. It was that she had chosen it. She had chosen this, chosen to leave, chosen herself over us, over me. I went to the wine cabinet, her favorite bottle, the one we had saved for our anniversary. I opened it and poured myself a glass, the deep red liquid swirling in the glass. It felt strange in my hands, as if the wine itself was mocking me. It had been meant for a celebration, a new chapter in our lives. Now it was just a hollow symbol of everything that had fallen apart. I drank it alone. The dog, her dog, had stopped sleeping in our room. He'd always curled up beside the bed, waiting for her to come home, even on the nights she worked late. But now, he slept by the door. He knew, too. He knew she wasn't coming back. I kept texting her over and over. Please just tell me why. There was no response, just those 3 little dots, and then nothing. That silence was worse than anything she could have said. I drove to her sister's house with the faintest hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd find an answer. A clue. Something that would make sense of this sudden, jagged rupture between us. The silence in the car felt suffocating, thick as smoke, swirling around me. I parked in front of the house, the driveway too quiet, just like everything else. I rang the bell, my fingers numbing on the cold brass. A moment later, I saw her sister peek through the living room window, her face scrunched in concern like she had expected me, but hoped she hadn't. She doesn't want to be found, her sister said, voice muffled through the glass. She didn't offer me an invitation in, didn't even crack the door wide enough for me to step across the threshold. Respect that. I stood frozen, staring at the door, the weight of her words settling like rocks in my stomach. Asterisk. Respect abandonment. Respect the idea that she was gone, emotionally, long before she physically left. I just want to talk to her, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but it cracked. Asterisk. Please, just let me see her one last time. Her sister shook her head slowly. She's not ready. You need to let her go. I turned away before I could say something I'd regret. The air outside felt colder than I remembered. A distant memory stirred in my mind of her hands in mine, warm and soft, always holding on, always so sure we were in this together. But she'd been letting go for months, maybe even years, and I hadn't noticed. I drove back home in a fog. The house loomed in front of me, a place that had once been a sanctuary, now a prison of questions. I went inside, moved through the hallways like a ghost. My hands found themselves reaching for the old family albums, the ones where our smiles looked genuine, our eyes full of the promise of forever. I flipped through them, each page heavier than the last, and then I saw it. Her eyes were different. I hadn't noticed it before, but now, looking at these photographs, I saw a subtle shift. There was something lurking there, something dark and distant that wasn't there before. It was a small thing, an imperceptible shift in the curve of her smile, but it was there. I went to the drawer where we kept our receipts, our bills, the mundane proof of a life we'd built. Among them were stacks of receipts I'd never seen before, therapy sessions, private counseling. I stared at the numbers printed in black ink, sharp as a blade, knowing I had no right to be angry. Asterisk, she needed this. She needed someone to listen. But the truth stung all the same. I wasn't part of her healing. I was part of what she healed from. I moved to the attic, the one place she had always kept locked away from me, her journals. She'd hidden them there, pages ripped out in haste. I opened one, heart pounding, afraid of what I'd find. The ink bled across the page, her handwriting a frantic scrawl. He doesn't see me. I'm invisible in my own home. I closed the book. Asterisk, invisible. Asterisk, I had never seen her slipping away, piece by piece, until it was too late. Had she always felt this way? My reality was cracking open. All those years, all that love, and I had missed it. Missed asterisk her. Asterisk, I stood there for a long time, the weight of her words pressing down on me. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had shared my life with, had been a stranger in the shadows all along, and I didn't even know it. If the person closest to you was slowly disappearing, how long would it take you to notice? I shaved this morning, the hum of the razor like a hollow drone in the bathroom. The water ran cold, and I hadn't noticed until the chill seeped through my fingertips. But that wasn't the thing that stopped me. It was the man in the mirror. I looked at him, this stranger in my reflection, and realized something that hit harder than any slap. I didn't recognize him. I didn't know who he was anymore. Was this man the one she married, the one she spent 10 years with? Was he the person who loved her, or just the one who needed her to stay? I didn't have answers, only the oppressive weight of silence that hung around me like a fog. I stood there, watching my face harden, searching for something to grab onto. Anything. But all I found was doubt. I started asking myself questions I'd avoided for far too long. Was I controlling? Did I love her? Or just need her to need me? Had I taken her for granted all this time, thinking she would always be there? That somehow, if I just kept living in my own world, she would too? I hated how much the truth stung. I hated that the questions I had avoided all these years were now crawling under my skin, whispering at every moment when I thought I could breathe. I found the therapist's name on her receipts, Dr. Harvey, the man she had been seeing in secret for the past 6 months. I made an appointment. He wouldn't speak to me, of course. Legally, he couldn't. But when I entered his office, his silence was deafening. He didn't offer pity. He didn't offer sympathy. He just sat there, eyes steady, watching me as if he already knew everything I was about to say, like he was waiting for me to figure it out on my own. It took everything in me to hold back from asking him, asterisk, what did she say? What did you know that I didn't? Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I retraced her steps, the last month, her quiet moments, the ones she never shared with me. She had gone to a poetry reading one night by herself. I found the address and went there, stood in the same room she had. The barista behind the counter remembered her. She always looked sad, he said, wiping a mug absent-mindedly, like she was waiting to be missed. His words cut deep, sharper than I expected. Asterisk, waiting to be missed. The thought of her standing there, surrounded by strangers, longing for something I couldn't give her, it gutted me. I went home that night and watched our wedding video. We were young, hopeful. She looked radiant, her eyes full of dreams, of promise. But I looked distracted. There, at the altar in front of everyone, I was already somewhere else, somewhere far from her. I wasn't a bad man. I wasn't. But I wasn't a present one. And maybe love needs more than habit. Maybe it needs to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. And now, standing alone in this house, I was finally realizing that. Too late. Cleaning her closet wasn't on my to-do list. I was just looking for a sweater, something simple, to distract me from the gnawing ache in my stomach. But as I rummaged through the hangers, her dresses still hanging, as though they had been left there just yesterday, I saw it. A letter, tucked between the folds of a jacket she hadn't worn in months. It was addressed to me. I almost didn't open it. Part of me wanted to leave it untouched, a piece of her that felt safer left unexplored. But then I thought, asterisk, what if it helps me understand? And so I tore open the envelope. The handwriting was hers, loopy, fluid, like a song that had been written 1,000 times but was never finished. The first line hit me harder than I was prepared for. You were a good man, but I was disappearing. I could hardly breathe. I braced myself against the closet door frame, feeling the weight of her words press down on me. Slowly, painfully, I read on. She wrote about how lonely it felt to be married and still be unseen, how she had slowly started to disappear, like the shadows at dusk, fading into the background of our life together. Her words were sharp, cutting through the layers of denial I'd built up. She said, I waited for you to notice I was fading. You never did. The sentence hung there, echoing in my mind over and over. It felt like a slap across my face, a truth I had refused to see, even though it was right in front of me the entire time. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor. The letter fluttered to the ground beside me, its edges crumpled under my weight. I couldn't stop reading it, couldn't stop seeing the signs she had left for me. I remembered the time I forgot our anniversary. She'd acted like it was no big deal, even made a joke about it. But I knew, deep down, it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine at all. She had buried her hurt beneath layers of laughter and it's okays, but I had been too blind to hear her, to see her, to feel her slipping away. And then there were the times when she cried in the shower, her back turned to me, the water rushing down her face. I thought it was just the shampoo in her eyes. I told myself it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. She had been drowning in her silence, and I had been too wrapped up in my own world to notice. Maybe the signs were always there, and I just wasn't looking. But now, in the quiet of the room with her absence pressing down on me, I couldn't unsee them. I closed the letter and let it fall from my hands. My heart felt like it had been carved out of my chest, raw and exposed. The regret was suffocating, curling around me like smoke. What if the love I thought I was giving her had been slowly suffocating her instead? The weight of that question sat in the pit of my stomach, heavy and relentless. There were no answers in the letter, only the ache of everything left unsaid, everything she had tried to tell me without ever truly speaking the words. I started boxing up her things the same way you'd pack away winter clothes after the season's over, carefully, but with the quiet finality of something that no longer belongs. But each item, each object, screamed at me in ways I wasn't ready to hear. The scarf she always wore on cold mornings, the one that smelled like her laugh, that faint mix of cinnamon and fresh coffee. It felt too soft in my hands, too warm. I folded it neatly, but it wasn't enough to hide the ache that formed in my chest. I folded it again and again, until the fabric was a mass of forgotten memories pressed down into the bottom of the box. The book she'd been reading for weeks before she left, pages turned down in places as if she meant to come back to it. But she never did. It was a book about hope, about finding love after loss. How ironic, I thought. She'd always said it was her favorite, the one she'd read over and over. I flipped through the pages one last time, the mark of a life unfinished. I moved on to the perfume bottle, half empty as though she'd been trying to make it last, savoring the scent of who she used to be. I could still smell it, faintly, as I twisted the cap back on. I set it down gently like it might shatter if I wasn't careful enough. And then, the photograph. It was a small, creased photo, tucked between the pages of a journal I didn't even know she had. Her smile was wide, carefree, like the world had yet to touch her. But the man beside her, I didn't recognize him. His arm around her waist, his face close to hers. The same intimacy I'd thought belonged to only us. I stared at it for a long time. Who was he? My hand shook as I reached for my phone. A quick message to her old friend, someone who'd always been a part of our lives, even if I didn't always understand their connection. "Do you know who this is?" I sent, attaching the photo. The reply was immediate. "Don't dig. You won't like what you find." I stared at the words. The chill that ran down my spine was cold enough to freeze my thoughts. Asterisk. What did that mean? Was it a warning? Or was it a confession I wasn't ready to hear? I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't let it go. I opened her Facebook page. It was gone. The account had been deleted. Every trace of her life, every post, every picture, erased, as if she had never existed on that platform. I tried her email next, but it bounced back, telling me it had been deactivated. A clean exit. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. Was this planned? Had she been preparing this for months while I was still cooking dinner, convinced everything was normal? I felt the walls closing in. All those quiet mornings, those moments that seemed so mundane, so regular. Had they been her escape plan all along? I didn't want to know the answer. But I opened the file cabinet anyway. What I found sent a jolt through me. Legal papers. Not just a few, stacks of them, dated months before she left. My hands froze as I ran my eyes over the words, understanding settling in like a stone sinking to the bottom of a lake. She'd been preparing her escape while I'd been making dinner like everything was fine, and I didn't even see it coming. A lawyer showed up at my door. I didn't know what to expect, but I certainly hadn't prepared myself for this. It wasn't a man in a suit, someone with the sterile, practiced demeanor you see on TV. No, this woman had eyes that seemed to have seen too much pain, too much reality. Her voice was soft, measured. "I'm here to deliver this on behalf of your wife." My wife. I hadn't heard that word in days, weeks maybe. It felt foreign, like it was a name I had no right to say anymore. She handed me a letter. Its edges were worn, like it had been folded and unfolded over and over. I almost didn't want to open it, but the lawyer's presence made it inevitable. She stood there, a silent observer, as I tore into the envelope, her handwriting, her words. There was someone else. It started with emotional comfort. It wasn't about sex. It was about feeling alive again. I felt like I was being suffocated. The weight of it hit me in a way that no slap ever could. A truth so ugly it poisoned the air. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It was as if my entire life had just been reduced to this one sentence, this one revelation. And then, the part that gutted me. "I made you feel like furniture, there but unnoticed." Her words stung not just in my ears but deep in my chest. I'd been so absorbed in my own quiet existence, I'd never noticed what was happening to her. I thought I was enough. I thought the silence between us was okay because we didn't have to say anything to know we were there. But I was wrong. She wasn't just tired of me. She was suffocating in the very life we'd built. I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, mixing with the sadness like a cocktail of fire and ice. I punched the wall. The impact rattled my bones. The pain was sharp, but it was the only thing that made me feel something real again. The lawyer didn't say anything. She just watched me as I stood there, fists clenched, tears threatening but never quite falling. I tried calling our daughter. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number, and when the voicemail picked up, I felt my heart crack. "Hey, sweetie, it's Dad. Can you call me back?" Nothing. I called again and again, but it was the same thing. Straight to voicemail. A knot twisted in my stomach. Was she mad at me too? Had she been this angry for a while and I just hadn't noticed? I finally gave up. I sat down on the floor, staring at the letter as if it could offer some kind of answer. But it didn't. It only made things worse. Was I the villain in this story? The one who hadn't seen what was right in front of him? Or was I just a man who had convinced himself that love meant never having to say anything at all? The silence between us wasn't a comfort. It was a betrayal, and I was the one left to pick up the pieces. I sat on the edge of our bed, the weight of the silence pressing down on me like a stone I couldn't lift. The bed where she used to lie, where we used to wake up tangled in each other's arms, the morning starting with soft murmurs and her warm breath against my chest. Now it was just me, alone, cold. I stared at the empty side of the bed, the space where she used to sleep, the sheets twisted in the place she once occupied. I couldn't help but feel the absence of her in the room, like an echo bouncing off the walls. My thoughts drifted back to her smile, her laughter, the way she would roll her eyes when I said something stupid, the way she'd touch my arm when she didn't know how to say what was in her heart. She was always trying to show me something, and I never quite saw it. I should have seen it sooner. Maybe I wouldn't be here now, sitting in this cold emptiness if I had. But it was too late for regrets, too late for apologies I never offered, too late for the things left unsaid. So, instead of asking for forgiveness, I wrote her a letter, not to win her back. No, that ship had sailed. This was different. This was something I owed her, something I owed myself. I wrote slowly, carefully, like I was peeling back layers of guilt and shame I'd buried so deep I almost forgot they were there. I wrote that I saw her now, really saw her. I saw the small things, the little cracks in her smile when she thought I wasn't looking, the weight of her shoulders when she'd take on one more thing for us, the way her eyes would flicker with uncertainty but then quickly harden into determination. She never asked for anything in return, and I couldn't even be bothered to notice until it was too late. I wrote that I failed us, I failed her, and that I was sorry. So, sorry for everything. I didn't send it. I couldn't. It seemed like sending it would be another kind of selfishness, a plea for closure when there was no more to give. She had made her choice. She had walked away. I had no right to intrude on her peace. Instead, I left it in the drawer where she used to keep her jewelry, the one that smelled faintly of her perfume, the one I never bothered to open because I didn't think I needed to. How many times had I passed it, never once wondering if she needed something from me that I couldn't see? I don't know if she'll ever read it. Maybe she won't. Maybe she won't come back. But somehow, that wasn't the point anymore. I sat back, staring at the drawer, at the letter sealed inside, and I realized something. I had finally said the things I needed to say. In some strange way, that gave me peace. Not because I thought it would fix everything, but because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't hiding from myself anymore. I wasn't pretending. I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. The man staring back at me was different, not better, not worse, just different. But I didn't flinch this time. I didn't turn away. Maybe that's the beginning of healing. Maybe it's the quietest kind of apology, The one you say to yourself when no one else is listening. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, the soft, early morning light spilling through the blinds, casting shadows that felt too heavy for such a simple moment. My daughter's eyes were red and puffy, her tiny hands clutching her worn-out stuffed bunny like it could protect her from the chaos we were both swimming in. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking more than I wanted it to. I couldn't remember the last time I had apologized for anything. Life had been a blur of expectations, disappointments, and constant busyness. I never truly stopped to listen, not to her, not to anyone, not even to myself. She blinked up at me, her small face a mixture of confusion and sadness, as if she didn't know how to process what had been said. She'd been so used to the silence, so used to the distance I'd kept between us. But I couldn't ignore the ache in her eyes anymore. I couldn't pretend she wasn't hurting just as much as I was. "I just wanted you to feel something, Dad," she whispered. And there it was, the raw truth that had been festering between us for months, maybe longer. She was right. I had been numb, a stranger in my own house, watching her grow up while I remained stuck in my own grief. My heart clenched as I realized how much I had failed her. I broke down. I cried harder than I ever thought I could. For her, for me, for all the time I had wasted. She reached out, her small arms wrapping around me, her warmth grounding me in that moment. We held each other, two broken pieces trying to make sense of the wreckage we were now living in. After that day, things started to shift, but not in the way I expected. I started therapy. It wasn't to fix the past. I knew that wasn't possible, but it was a way to understand it, to untangle the knots in my mind that had kept me paralyzed for so long. My therapist told me to start journaling, to let my thoughts spill onto paper without fear. At first it felt strange, like I was opening up a door I'd slammed shut years ago, but slowly my words started to make sense. I took walks, I talked to strangers, and for the first time in forever, I listened. I listened to my daughter when she spoke, really heard her. I listened to the wind in the trees, the rustle of leaves, the sound of my own footsteps on the pavement. It was like I had been walking through life with my eyes closed, but now I could see again. I stopped searching for my wife. It hurt, but I let go of the idea that I could somehow fix what had broken between us. Instead, I focused on finding myself. There was no map, no guide, just me trying to figure out who I was now that the life I thought I had was gone. Sometimes, healing isn't about finding closure. It's about acceptance, accepting that things will never be the same. Accepting that I wasn't the person I thought I was, and that maybe, just maybe, I was okay with that. I don't hate her. I don't even blame her anymore. I miss her. I still do, in ways I can't explain, but I understand her more now. I understand the reasons behind the silence, behind the distance, behind the decision to walk away. And maybe, just maybe, love is about letting go of the idea that we can hold on to someone, control their journey. Sometimes love is about accepting that the people we care about need to find themselves too. And that's okay. It's been 1 year, one long broken year. And here I am, staring at her shoes in the closet. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. They're still there, neatly placed beside mine. Scuffed, worn at the toes, the same beige color that used to catch the sunlight when she walked. They're just shoes, but they're the last piece of her left in this house. The only reminder of what once was. I never saw her again. Not after that day she left. Her absence was so complete, so final, I almost couldn't process it. No phone calls, no emails, not even a glimpse of her on social media. It was like she vanished into thin air, taking every part of me that belonged to her with her. But I saw me, finally. Not the man I thought I was, but the one I'd been all along. Broken, lost, but still alive. I spent so many months in the wreckage of what we'd built, waiting for her to come back, waiting for an answer, an explanation, some closure. But there was none. The truth had already been spoken in her note, the one that tore me apart in the quietest way possible. And the silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I don't check the mailbox anymore, hoping for a letter from her. There are no more midnight phone calls that go unanswered, no more nights spent watching the door, expecting her to walk through it. I've let go of that need, the waiting, the hoping. It's done. I live differently now. I don't live for her anymore. I live for me. I see people in ways I hadn't before. I listen to their voices, really listen, and I watch their faces looking for the small things that matter. I notice the way a smile can hold sadness, or how laughter can hide the heaviest of hearts. It's funny, isn't it? How we can spend so much time loving someone else that we forget to see ourselves. I've forgiven her. I've had to. And I've forgiven myself too for all the things I should have said, the things I should have done differently. But the truth is, there's no use in dwelling on what I can't change. Life doesn't care about the things we wish we could redo. It moves on whether we're ready or not. And if you're watching this, maybe you've felt the same loneliness in love. Maybe you've been where I was, clinging to something that wasn't meant to stay, trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Don't wait 30 years to say what matters. Don't assume that silence means everything's okay, because it doesn't. Silence is a message all its own, and it's one we don't always want to hear. I've learned to listen, and now I'm speaking my truth. It might not change anything for you, but maybe, just maybe, it'll help you understand that we're all in this together, fighting our own battles, carrying our own burdens. And I'm finally okay with that. If this story resonated with your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe. There are stories we all carry, some we need to tell. Thank you for listening to mine.